Good evening. You reached the January 25th edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview some amazing authors and other people in the book industry every single week. And this week is no different. And I'm Gwen Richardson. I'm your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everybody.
And we have another, of course, amazing lineup again tonight. So at the top of the show, I want to just have a few housekeeping notes like I normally do. Our book club kickback is March 22nd. And we're having Rashonda Tate Billingsley. We're reading her book, Miss Pearlie's Girls. So the book comes out the end of February, and you can purchase it at that time so you can read and discuss the book along with us. We'll be giving away 3 autographed copies of the book like we always do for our kickbacks. The Black Authors Matter TV award show will be May 17th, and we have our process that we do. The final show for this, for the purposes of this process for 2022 will be on March 1st. So all of the guests from March 9th of last year to March 1st of this year will be included in the nominations process. And then we have, you all vote for the finalists, and then we announce them, and then you vote for the winners, and then we have the show. So it was very, very exciting last year. We're looking forward to that again.
It was a beautiful show last year.
It was a beautiful show, and we've had many, many views of our video. And we're going to try to do some different things this year. We'll actually have more categories because it's a longer period of time. So last year we had 11 categories. This year it will be closer to 15. I won't know exactly until the shows close out. But we also, the 2022 National Black Book Festival, we're expecting to open registrations in mid-February. We're working a few details out with the venue. And so once we get that done, we'll open the registration. And then we also have the Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards, which is a new award that we're giving the children's book authors. And anyone who's a children's book author in the African-American genre, so to speak, can submit. It doesn't have to be a Black author. It can be, the subject matter can be African-American. So it can be either one. And that process will start March 1st. It's several months. You have to submit and all of that. You have to, then we have finalists again. So we'll be giving that award out at the book festival in October. And we have a book giveaway tonight. We're going to do it at the top of the show this time. I think that's all that's all my announcements. So tonight we're giving away this book, When No One Is Watching, by Alyssa Cole. It's a mystery thriller. And to win this book, you have to, here's your trivia question, and you can find it within the synopsis. Which one of the New York City boroughs was the book's main character born? So in which one of the New York City boroughs, if you all know New York City, it has, I think, 5 boroughs.
Can I answer?
No. His name is Sydney, and she was born in one of those boroughs. So if you read the synopsis, you'll find that information. And we have an excellent lineup for tonight. Our first guest is Barbara Beckley. She is a talk show host and an author. And our second guest is Andrea Loney. She has a middle grade book about Stacey Abrams. Jeanette Pope is a mystery thriller author with BK Royston Publishing, and Chase Bolling is the author and managing editor of SF for the Culture. So our first guest is on camera. It's Barbara Beckley, and we're going to welcome her to Black Authors Matter.
Just real quick, I want to just give you a quick shout out, Ms. Gwen. I did get your book in the mail. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much for contributing to the essay contest. This is going to be a blessing to those students. So I want to just thank you before we get started.
Okay, and I probably need to do this myself, and I know you said you had to go off camera for a few minutes. So we will get started with Barbara. Now, Barbara is a phenom because she has her own talk show, and she interviews authors. And I actually was on her show. I don't think it's aired yet. I think it has aired. Okay. I don't know. I think I went to look for it and I couldn't find it. So I wasn't sure. Oh, we can't hear you, Barbara.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here with you two wonderful ladies. And I always call the ladies queens because I
Okay.
see queens as being their own queen of their empire. So if you hear me say queen, Gwen, queen, Dr. Rhonda, that's why.
Okay. All right. Well, I
being
receive
called
it.
a queen.
Yeah, I receive it.
Well,
So
I'm gonna excuse myself really
Okay.
quickly, and then I'll be right back. And I will be back during your interview because I want to hear from you myself. So I'll be right back.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Her picture of her daughter, that's her daughter's picture. They came up. At first I said, okay, Barbara, what happened? But you know, on the live, it doesn't show. On
No, it
Facebook,
doesn't,
it
no.
only shows the people that are actually on camera,
So,
which is great. I mean, it's a great thing. Now, I don't know if that's Zoom related or Facebook related, but you know, we learned that early on that
yeah, I did too. That's
yeah.
kind of nice how they do that.
Yeah, it is because it's great. It gives people an opportunity to go off camera. Now, tell us about your talk show that you do, and what's your goal? What type of people do you interview? I know you interview authors, but I know you don't exclusively interview authors. So just tell us about your show and where people can, you know, just tell us about it.
Okay, well, again, my name is Barbara J. Beckley. I am a purpose, visibility, and a social media strategist. So that's my title. And the biggest thing before I get to the show is the reason why I have the show is because one of the things I told myself, I said, if I want to help, especially women, understand what their purpose is, what they should be doing in their business, or if they want to be an author, speaker, or whatever, that let's really narrow that down and make sure that's something that you want to do. And then from that point on, you need the visibility. As we know, like right today, I'm getting visibility on your show. You got visibility on mine, and we should help each other collaborate. So I said, what can I do? Some things I can do to make sure people are getting that visibility. And I found this TV streaming show under E360 TV just last year.
Okay.
And told myself, I said, this would be a good opportunity. I'm talking about visibility. So I created the Diamond Factor Experience Network with Barbara Beckley, myself. And I have a few other experts that's come on during the week. So the show is Monday through Friday and Sunday. So I'm on 6 days out the week.
Are you?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was just 1 day a week.
No, it's 6. It's 6. So it's just
Oh.
like, that's why I call the network, because I have, variety of different shows during the week. And the show that you were on was Expanding Your Impact with Barbara Beckley, which I bring on guests that's creating impact in the world and doing things to really just say, you know what? You are really showing that light to others. And I know with you, Gwen, when we interviewed you, that you're just with this, the Black Authors Matters and everything that you're doing, especially for us as Black people, men and women, that you're bringing us in the front, just like the visibility I was saying earlier, how important it is. So that's what I do on Thursdays and Fridays for the show I have called the Coaches Lounge with Barbara Beckley, where I bring coaches and consultants and let people get to know who they are.
Oh, okay. Now, is your show interactive? Do people, can people ask questions of the guests, or is it recorded?
Well, it's basically live because it's live under E360 streaming TV. So they stream it around Roku and all those other shit. And then I also stream it under my Facebook, my YouTube. So we do get the comments so that after that, after the show is over, we can always go back or talk to those individuals.
Oh, okay. Because what we do, in fact, normally Rhonda does this, but because she's off camera, it is, I have to do it while she's off camera.
Double duty.
She has two. I'm gonna get, when I grow up and I'm like Rhonda, I'm gonna get me a second laptop so I can have the two laptops side by side.
Running.
But I use my cell phone, and I want to make sure that I don't have any questions right off the bat as we get started, because I don't want, we always have questions. We always have a lot. One thing about this show, we always have a lot of back and forth. We have a lot of comments. We have a lot of people who watch the show every week, and they give us feedback. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So right now, people are saying good evening and hello, and it was a beautiful show. maybe that's the one I was on. I don't know. Sounds like that's Mary, she's always watching. Oh, Brandon Mays, you answered the question about the book. So I'm going to like we gave away a book at the top of the show. So Brandon Mays, if you're watching, please DM your mailing address and we will send you your copy of the book when no one is watching. So, but how do you keep content if you're 6 days a week? You said you're 6 days a week.
6 days a week.
How are you able to have content for all those shows?
Well, basically, I had to look at what my purpose was as far as the Diamond Factor Experience Network and what I wanted to bring. So the three main keys is awareness, educate, motivate. So those are the three main topics that I wanted to make sure I was branching over the network. And then I also said, you know what? I want to, I look at people that has already been successful. So guess who I looked at? Oprah, And I said, okay, let me follow her lead a little bit. So every day I have a different show depending on what the topic is. Like for Monday, we have talking about financial and networking and marketing. On Tuesdays, we have a variety show where we bring in other people just so they can talk about their business. Wednesdays, we have a person that comes on talking about gems compared to women and how if you know their stories and understand the story of gems and understanding women's stories, why they are the way they are and why they're valuable. And I love that show because it's a man, Barry B. Mixon. He's the host on that one. And he's basically saying, we need to be treated right. Us as queens, we need to be treated right. And it's coming from a man's point of view, that's awesome. And then on Thursdays, I have the Expanding Your Impact with myself, which I basically talk and interview with people that are really making a difference in life. If it's a nonprofit or just out there. And then Fridays, like I said, I interview the coaches and consultants. So, all week I have a different day where we're dealing with awareness, educating and promoting and motivating people.
So do you have a producer that gets guests for you? You your own producer?
Producer, I'm host,
marketing.
How do you not get exhausted? That sounds like a lot of work.
It does. It's 6 days a week. 6 days a lot.
And I would tell people, learn from Barbara what not to do. So I tell people, get a VA, get a virtual assistant. If you have a friend that likes to do making sure they're making the calls and the follow-ups, get somebody that's going to help you in that business because it is needed. So yeah, definitely is a lot of work. But I also say, the reason I was looking at I put a little sign on my computer right now where I say, okay, what is the purpose on why I'm doing this? Because it always leads me back when I'm feeling weak or tired or whatever. I'm just not feeling it one day. I always remind myself, okay, this is why you're doing it, Barbara. Yes. So, but I do tell people, if you can delegate and find somebody, do it. Do it.
Absolutely.
I agree. And, I stay in my lane, which, my lane is all inclusive, but there's some things that I don't even try to do. And I have like graphics. I don't do that. That's not my gift. So I have, great graphics people that I
and this awesome graphics. Yeah.
And this one is done by Mary Evans, who's what is Mary? Mary is a friend. She's a tech expert and she's watching the show right now. So I'm just she's
Mary, go ahead and make a list of everything that you are to this show because it's quite a bit.
And she's one of the managers of the National Black Book Festival. She's one of the coordinators for the Children's Festival portion, and she's going to be one of the judges of our new Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards. So Mary wears a lot of hats, but she's one of the people who does like these virtual graphics. Now, when we have flyers and things like that, like the online flyers, I have someone else who does all of that. And then I have someone who does amazing video work that's done some amazing videos for us. So I don't do that.
Having a good team. Yeah.
Yes, I don't do that. And Rhonda always checks she's the co-host of the show, but she also does the producing part as far as making sure that the comments are checked on a regular basis. Because I tend to get absorbed in talking to the guests. And I'm not as good at switching around like she is. So so when did you start your show?
I started a year and a half ago, and I started with the hope and praying to God, saying, okay, now that I put all this together, I hope people come for first coming on the show to get visibility, and second, people watching it. So I have to say, and I love saying this, as of today, for a whole 6 months, we've been having over 30,000 viewers through the E360 network that's watching the show monthly. So we are
That's
getting that
wonderful.
visibility. Yes, we're getting that
Amazing.
visibility.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell
Thank
us
you.
about the E360 network.
Yeah, so I wanted to find a platform that had, like, the Roku, the Amazon TV, and the app. It's just like 7 different TV streamings that they have.
Mhm.
So I told them, I said, I want to make sure that I just don't want to be on Facebook and YouTube because I'm trying to get that visibility for people. And basically they said, well, we host shows. You could have a show and we'll host it for you. There's a cost for it monthly, but
Right.
at least it gives more visibility for what I was looking for. And they have over, like, I think, oh, now I'm thinking now, like maybe 400, they call us hosts, like 450 hosts under that network. So if anybody wants to watch my show, it's under the WWE360TV.com. Yeah.
So how does a person get to be on your show?
Well, I have a form that a questionnaire, if somebody's interested, if they're a coach, if they're a consultant. Like I said, on Fridays, I do those interviews. On Thursdays, I always look for somebody that's like expanding their impact, any kind of way how they're expanding impact. If they're a speaker, and they're out there just making a change in life. I tell them to come on Thursdays too. So they can always just fill out the questionnaire and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to look to, if you want to maintain what you're doing, you have to always be growing or trying new things. I'm looking into some things about expanding the platform for this show.
Well, and I was going to add too, because since you all talk to authors, you're doing an awesome job to get them out there for visibility. And I have a partner of mine, myself and Luana Bradford. We, are so, when it comes to visibility, especially for authors, it feels like they write the book, they put all their hard work and effort into it, and then they put it out, they say, okay, campaign, yeah, here it is, and then that's it. It's like they stop there. And we always tell them that there's other ways to repurpose that through coming on shows like yours and mine and doing workshops and stuff. So we do have quarterly workshops, myself and Luana, where we teach the authors how to really just be a bigger impact with their book. And that's why I said this would be like one of the things we would tell somebody, like, get on a show like Black Authors Matters, and they can, talk about the book. I mean, get it out there. You didn't do it just to do it. I always say you put pen to paper of your stories that are really important so you can make a difference, and people should be hearing that.
Yeah, they should. And we have authors of all genres we've had.
Right. And it's great that it's not just authors, bookstore owners. We have basically literacy advocates, anybody who values the written word. We've had on this show, and I'm very proud of the fact that many authors who have come on this show, people have bought their books while they were still talking.
Right.
It's a very, very supportive audience.
It's awesome. Yeah,
it is. And just going through all of the guests for the purposes of we do an award show. So one thing that we do with our show, we take all the guests that have been on the show, like it will be from March 9th of 2021 to March 1st of 2022 for this year's awards. But we had it last year for the previous people.
It's coming up around the corner.
Yeah, everyone who's been on the show during that time is included in the nominations process. So what we do is we have categories for all the people who've been on the show, and you'll be a part of the process. And then people vote on within those categories, and then the top 5 people, vote getters, become the finalists. And then there's another round of finalists, and then the winners we have an award show where we dress up in formal attire, and we have a panel of people who are presenters, and they have like the envelope. They have the envelope that they open and say the winner is. So it's really, really It's really nice. It was really nice.
It's really
last year.
nice, yeah.
That
And
was
it's
our
good to
first time.
honor them. It's good to honor
Yes,
them.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes. And it increases the platform, the word of mouth. Word of mouth is how people learn about most online things.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
It's done that way. So you also are an author yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a few. I've been in a lot of collaboration books, over
Okay.
10 now, and just a
Oh,
few.
okay.
If you don't mind me showing,
No,
I have
no, we
one
want you to
over.
show.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. Well, now this was my very first one that I was in. You see me in the corner.
Okay.
Influence women overcoming mediocrity, and these were
Okay.
just stories of women that we've been through different highs, lows in our lives, where basically we were creating a significant standard of certain ways how to move forward if things happen. We're always going through the valleys. Like right now, we're all going through the valley with the pandemic.
Right.
But there's always a jewel out of that. And that's what we were trying to show in the book, that even though you might be dealing with different things, that there's always that light to say, okay, there's a reason for this. Why is this going on? And learn from it and move from it. So that book I was in, that was my very first book I was in. This was like 4 years ago. And I'm proud of this one because first of all, I was able to be the only really minority in this book.
Okay.
So I was really proud about that. And then also to share my story about my dad, because my dad passed when I was 17 and he basically was murdered. And I showed how I went through that whole obstacle of, getting through that, and then understanding that through that outcome, that I said, you still need to understand, who you are and move forward to your purpose, even though things like that in your life happens. So that was the first book I written. And at the time, like I said earlier, I wrote the chapter in the book, we put it out there, campaign, it's an Amazon bestseller. And then that was it. And we didn't, us as being new authors, we didn't know what to do next. So that's what I always press upon people, is you need to get that visibility, because you didn't write that book just to be writing it. So then there's a few other books that I've been through after that. 31 Ways of Influence. Here's another book dealing with 31. It's from the Bible, from the Bible regarding Proverbs, and talking about different ways of how women are within what we do now in business or personal. So I was in this book too, that I was really proud of and there were 2 volumes. So I was in both volumes of this book.
Oh,
And
okay.
then another book I was just recently, Unleashing Your Unidentifiable Impact, with Cheryl, excuse me, with Cheryl Wood and Les Brown. So I was in this book too. And it just came out.
If you're in a book with Les Brown.
Yeah, I'm in here at the top. but yeah, he forwarded and he, signed off on it. And this was another one that I really love to be in, because really powerful, just talking about how you make an impact in the world and how important it is on what you're doing in life to show, so people know that they can move forward. So a lot of good inspirational stories, but really taking the steps and not just saying, oh, I just became, a TV producer. No, it took a lot of struggle. I mean, I went through a lot. It just didn't happen. And I think when you show the people the way, that helps them understand that, hey, I can do this.
Yes.
I mean, I'm struggling, but maybe I need to talk to this person or do that.
LaWanna Bradford says, hello, everyone. I see you have the powerhouse queen, Barbara Beckley, in the house. She is amazing.
That's my partner.
Okay.
When people give you that type of positive reinforcement.
Yes. We that's what I said. If we would do that, all of us, that would be so amazing right now. So that's why I tell you ladies that, all the time. I said, when she was on my show, Queen, you're awesome. Dr. Rhonda, I'm just getting to know you already. I know, because I've seen some of your shows, because I always look at the shows when I'm on the show. And I said, okay, good. I like that. And thank you for your services too, because I know you said you was in the military.
Yes.
So
well, thank you very much. I see you have done your homework, and I'm going to have to be on your show pretty soon, because I got a few things that I need to promote myself.
Yeah, come on over.
Now, one thing about collaborations, I've never been in one, but one thing about it, well, other than the book my daughter and I wrote together, but that's not really the same, like an anthology or a book where multiple authors are in it. You have multiple people marketing the book. So that's a good thing. It's not just one author marketing. You have multiple people marketing. Now, how does that work when people are in, I guess, so what is it, like an anthology where you submit and you pay for, it's like you pay to be in the book to have a
Yeah.
submission in there,
So
and
you
then
pay-
you're sharing
Yeah.
the
And the
cost
sharing.
of producing it. But
Yeah, and they
on the
do the
royalty
editing.
side, do the people who are in there get any of the royalties? How does that work? I'm just curious.
Well, it depends on what, which one you're in. I know the few of the books that I've been in, basically, we're there an offer in the book, and then we basically pay for, that, the editing and everything and the marketing. And then after that, they sell us the books. We can buy how many books, and then we can sell them
Okay.
from
Okay.
that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
That's pretty much what I'm doing with mine.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm just working on one.
They can buy a box of books and they sell them for whatever they want to sell them for.
Yeah. Or, one thing I was going to say too, I know with time is people always say, well, sometimes I can't sell this the book alone. I said, put it in a package that you have. Like if you have a service or product, say, you get this webinar plus you get my book or the book, this anthology book. So you could add it in and then charge, that fee for the whole package. So, so in their minds are like, oh, I'm getting a package and a book.
Right.
So I always tell people there's ways to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, we only have a few minutes left. I think you were about to say the same thing, Gwen.
Yeah, well, I was, and I was going to ask her about advice that you would have. I know you told authors they need to get out there, but other people who are in professions and maybe they don't have a book yet, or they just want to increase their profiles. What advice would you give them?
Well, first, I would tell them to make sure that, first of all, believe in who they are and what they do. A lot of times we're so busy doing and moving and saying, we got to do this. You got to dig deep and say, okay, I believe in myself, so I need to put myself out there. A lot of times people be like, I don't want to put myself, people are going to say that I'm doing all this, I'm throwing all this out here. And don't worry about that. This is about you making a difference in life. And as we all know, life is too short right now, as we can see. And it's time for us to step up to that next level and just say, this is who I am. So once you get that in your head and understand that you are an influencer, then look for platforms that will tend to really ignite with what you're doing and talk to the individuals and see if you can get on those different programs. And if you can't, guess what? Create your own. That's what I did. That's what you did here. So if you can't find any other platform to get yourself on there, create your own platform and bring people on that's like-minded. And it's never hard. It's so easy. Facebook is free right now. Use that. Some people use that as an excuse. Well, I don't have enough money to put that together. You can use Facebook. It's out there. You can use LinkedIn now. There's a lot of places to get you out there, but you need to get that visibility so people can hear your voice. So that's what I would say to everybody out there now.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left. Where can people find you? How can they reach out to you? Let's say they want to be on the show. They want to find your books. Maybe they just want to say hi. Where can they find you?
I like the highs. Yeah, you can get me at www.barbarabeckley.com. That's my website. And I always send people there. Also on Facebook, it's under Barbara Beckley and all the other basically social medias. So I just want to say again, thank you, Queens, Gwen and Dr. Rhonda for having me on the show. I always love sharing, especially with women that are creating that influence in the world. And let's just keep doing that because that's what we need right now.
But thank you very much for being on the show and spreading your positivity. I mean, this was, I know I only got to hear some of it, but it was a beautiful interview and I really enjoyed your spirit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very upbeat, and upbeat is always good. And it's like a ray of sunshine. The sunshine attracts people. So
yeah, it feels good too on you.
It does.
A ray of sun.
Okay, Barbara, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV.
Hey, you take care, everybody.
You too.
You too.
Bye-bye.
So we have our next guest, and I was telling Rhonda that we also have our Black Authors Matter branded merchandise. And I had, Rhonda has had her mug on and I kept forgetting. I had mine sitting on a shelf and I hadn't washed it yet. And so I didn't want to drink from it before I washed it. So I finally did. So I'm going to use this on the show instead of using my regular white mug.
Yeah. Well,
it's a very nice mug and it's red on the inside.
I love the fact that the mug is red on the inside. It is really, really pretty.
Yeah.
And I'm not drinking out my mug today because it's all the way downstairs and I'm not about to go off camera However, if my boyfriend is watching, and usually he does each week, if he's watching, maybe he'll bring me some chai tea latte again, and that I can drink out of my mug.
But it's good to have a live request. You know, they used to have those live on the radio years ago. They used to have live shout outs. And so so now we're in another mode technologically, but this is.
But now, you know what? Here's the sad part. If he doesn't bring me the mug, then that means he wasn't listening.
That is true, because he may not watch the entire show, you know, or he may be watching it while he's doing stuff or something like that.
Right. Well, he's baking, so.
Yeah, I saw those cookies, those red velvet cookies. They looked good.
Oh, they were delicious.
Does he have an online thing where you can order them?
Yes, I have to send it to you. If you go on
send it to me.
Mr. Crave's cookies.
Because they look delicious. I mean, they look delicious. And was something. So I said, wow, they look moist. You know, they were really.
Oh, you've got to try the snickerdoodles. That's what he's making right now.
Snickerdoodles. Okay. All right. Well, we have our next guest.
Next guest.
This is a young author who has a book for young people. And she has a middle grade book about Stacey Abrams, who I believe everyone knows. So our guest name is Andrea. Now, is your last name pronounced Loney?
It's Loney. Like I'm short. Loney.
Loney. Okay.
Loney.
Okay.
That's what my dad always taught me to say. Tell them that you're short. It's Loney. I'm like, okay, Daddy.
It's too cute.
Well, thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and congratulations on your book. I believe this is your first book. Is that right?
It actually is technically it's my fourth book. It's my fourth book.
Yeah. What do you mean technically?
Well, it's my first middle grade chapter book. I've been writing picture books for a few years, and this is the first like book with like many pages.
Okay.
32 pages, and there are more coming.
32 pages. Huh?
How did you get involved in being published writing at such a young age? I don't know how old you are. Would you tell us how old you are?
I can tell you guys how old I am.
Okay.
I am 51 and a half.
Are you serious? You look so much younger than me. And I'm not even 50 yet.
It's the lighting.
You look like a kid.
It's all the ring lights. It's the ring lights.
You look like a kid. So that's why I thought you were almost a middle grader yourself.
Oh, I appreciate that, because when I tell my students how old I am, they're like, "No, you're not, Miss Andrea. You're okay, right?" I'm like, "I'm 50. I'm not dead. It's okay." Yeah. I get so scared.
That's awesome. Well, whatever you're drinking, keep drinking it.
You also have books on other famous African Americans. So tell us about those as well.
I do. Okay, so to start from almost the beginning, I wanted to be a writer from when I was like in the second grade.
Okay.
So I was always very interested and took a lot of different classes in that. Went to summer programs for writing, and I studied dramatic writing, which is playwriting, poetry, and screenwriting, and a kind of minor in Afro-Atlantic music, dance, and art at New York University.
Okay.
And was super excited with that degree, and then was terrified of the real world. So I worked at Disney, and I worked in film and television for a while. I worked on TV shows that didn't get made. I worked on the Chicken Soup for the Soul TV show that did get made. And then I worked in Disney consumer products, and I did captioning and subtitling on films, which meant I was reading movies all the time and kind of falling in love with them in that way. And I eventually left all of that and became a computer teacher. And I've been a teacher. This is my 18th year, I guess, as a teacher, and I teach all grades from basically kindergarten to college at this point. But there was a point, I'll tell you exactly when the point was. The point was when Trayvon Martin was, when his killer was acquitted, basically. I was so upset for so many reasons. And part of it is because I had this picture of my nephew when he was 7 in a hoodie, and he just looked so cuddly. And I couldn't reconcile those two, the image in the media and the image in my life, this little brown boy that like I love with all my heart. And I had to do something, and I didn't know what it was. Like, am I going to go into politics? What can I do? And then I thought about another little brown boy in a hoodie that the whole world fell in love with, and that was the book, The Snowy Day, right? By, and the little, and it came out in the 60s and everything, but still, I thought, well, maybe this is the way. Maybe it's going back to storytelling and telling stories about these children who I love so much in my life, these children who I teach as a teacher, these adults that I teach who were once these children, all of this. So I threw myself into it and took every class I could take and joined all these different groups and joined the Society of Children's Book Authors and Illustrators, Writers and Illustrators. And I sold this book over here. I'll show it to you over here. Take a Picture of Me, James Vanderzee. He was a Harlem photographer, excuse all my ring lights, making me look young. And this was my first picture book that I sold. I think it was probably like the 11th or 12th one that I wrote.
That's beautiful illustration.
It's beautiful.
Oh, the illustrator is Keith Mallett, and you've seen his work if you've ever gone to like a Baptist church art show. And they've got like the picture, like the mom and the grandma and the daughter and the granddaughter together. Like that's the kind of, he's amazing, and he illustrates lots of great books. He's actually illustrating a book that I have coming out at the end of the year. But anyway, this book won the Lee and Loney Voices Award. So that was great. And it was also nominated for an NAACP award, which was really, it was so amazing because
which year was it?
That was probably in 2018 because this book came out in 2017.
Okay. Yeah, I had 2 books nominated. That's exciting.
Did you go?
Yes, I went both times. And the second time, my daughter and I wrote a book together, so we both got to go. She was a nominee too. She was in college at the time. So we both got to go as nominees, and they really give you the red carpet treatment. And that's a beautiful as a nominee, you get red carpet treatment.
It is really one of the most wonderful.
It's like Cinderella, it's like that.
I was in a category with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and we both lost. We both lost to Vashti Harrison and her Little Leaders books, which are just absolutely phenomenal. But like I lost with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like I'm some kind of like NBA player.
It's like you're in great company.
Yeah. The first year, I can't even remember who I lost to, because I was so like excited to be there that I wasn't even focused on. I just was excited to be there. The second year, we were in the teen category, and we lost to Malcolm X's granddaughter, who wrote a book about Malcolm X. So, we weren't gonna win in that category. It's all about the competition, but you always have the nomination. It's just like being nominated for an Academy Award or a Grammy. You're a nominee for life. So, that is something that's on your resume. And, with my daughter, got to meet a lot of celebrities. She invited her friend, one of her friends to come. And so she actually took a selfie with Chadwick Boseman. The year that I got nominated in 2015 and 2016. So 2016 was the year she and I were there together, and she met Chadwick Boseman, and he took a selfie with her. So, yeah, when he passed away, she posted it. But it's great. They have they've been doing it a long time. It's a
Mhm.
great honor. And the literary part is new, it's fairly new, because the other part is like 50 years old. But the literary part is 20 something years old. So it's a lot newer. But it's this really probably one of the highest honors, literary honors for Black, for Black people. It's
It
probably
was.
the highest one as far as what it means and the publicity that you get and everything. So what are your other books? That one was,
So my
Keith
other book
Mallett.
up
Keith
here.
Mallett, one other thing. Keith Mallett used to have a calendar commissioned, I believe, an annual calendar with his art in it. I'm almost positive he used to have one that was licensed through one of the publishers. And I think he may have had some figurines or something.
Yeah, I think he had figurines, but
Okay.
definitely the artwork. Because when they told me that I
Okay.
would be working with him the first time, I was just like, oh my gosh, I've
Yeah.
loved this man's work for years. And I
Yeah.
didn't even, he was just like, the church art guy.
Right.
Right.
And now
It's nice to
he's
see
like,
someone in a different context.
really, I mean, especially in a narrative context, in a narrative historical context,
Right.
because he and I are working on another book that's coming out at the end of this year on the LA architect Paul Revere Williams.
Okay.
And I was really, really excited that Keith was working on, because Keith also lives in California. I live in Inglewood. And
Oh, okay.
and I've lived like near Paul Williams, or worked near where Paul Williams was almost the entire time I've lived in Los Angeles. So I kind of feel like I've been dancing around this man in some way or another. And now I get to write about it and share his story. And I'm so excited to be able to do that. And again, that's with Keith Mallett. And
Okay.
with the same publisher that did Double Bass Blues. Double Bass Blues is the most recent book I had come out. And it won the stickers on that one. It won a Caldecott honor.
Okay.
It won a Caldecott honor, which is like the highest. No, sorry, Caldecott honor. The Caldecott medal is the highest, but the honor is the next level down. For the
Okay.
illustrator Grudy Gutierrez, who took my story about this little boy and his double bass, who has to kind of like travel all over the city with his double bass, and he just made it absolutely beautiful. And that story, I came up with the idea for that story when I was teaching computer classes to at-risk youth over on Slauson and Crenshaw. And I'm like, we have this great computer class. Why aren't you guys showing up? And they're just like staring at me like, on here. And then I asked them to like tell me a secret at some point in the class and some kind of a lesson. They're like, the secret is I really love being here. I'm loving learning how to use computers. Don't tell anybody. And they would tell me things like all the troubles they had getting to class. I have a car. I drive to class. They've got to take a bus that goes this way and that way.
Right.
Okay.
This one,
You have to walk a while, then take the bus, and then walk some more.
sometimes you got to pass somebody who you don't really want to pass, or pass somebody who's going to judge you, or sometimes it rains. I mean, there's all kinds of things that I never really thought about. And I, along with some other things in my life, my grandpa was a musician. My grandpa actually, he went to Juilliard, and which was really rare for like Black men back in like, back in the 1930s, I want to say. And he toured with the London Philharmonic during World War II. Like, like, oh, he can play piano. Let's take him out of the battlefield and send him on a tour. And then he came back to the United States, and he was a Black man working at the post office.
That's an amazing story in itself.
It is.
It's something I've been thinking about talking about as well. But and then Bunny Bear was another book that I wrote. Bunny Bear and the James Van Der Zee book both came out at they both came out in the same year. And and that's just a book about a bear who in his heart believes that he's a bunny. So and all that. And one thing that made me really happy about this book is that it didn't really seem to do very well when it first came out. But I kept talking to librarians who said, we can't keep this book on the shelves. Kids just keep wanting to take it home and they keep taking it out over and over and over again. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I got messages from parents who were telling me, you know, the libraries are going to close down because of the pandemic. And we told our kids, you're going to go to the library, you're going to get like whatever books you're going to get. We don't know when we're going to go back. And all these kids chose Bunny Bear to stay with them during the pandemic.
Now, that's a huge honor.
And that really warmed my heart, you know?
I mean, no matter how many awards you win, but when your target audience, the children, just feel like, okay, if I'm gonna have to go home with a book, I want it to be your book. You know, that's a beautiful thing.
It really makes me happy, warms my heart, and reminds me again, because I told you why I started all of this, like that image of my sweet cuddly nephew and just wanting to protect him and make sure. And I tell him that story now, and he's like 22, so he's like, yeah, that's really cute, Auntie Andrea. But like,
stop telling that story.
my heart, he's still that sweet little boy who deserves like all the love and the protection and the joy in the world, you know? So let's see, I also worked on a anthology. I was in an anthology. This anthology is called No Voice Too Small. I'm going to try to angle this so that you can see it. And it's 14 young Americans making history.
Try angling it the other way.
Pardon?
Yeah,
Try
try angling it.
I'm
no,
trying to get away from the light.
Yeah,
No
away
Voice
from the
Too
light.
Small.
Mhm.
14 young Americans making history. Illustrated by Jeanette Bradley and Lindsay Metcalf, Keila Dawson, and Jeanette Bradley were the editors. And they've got all kinds of authors in here, including Nikki Grimes, who just won like a Lifetime Achievement Award. So I'm like so happy to be involved with this. And Carol Boston Weatherford, who in my heart is like the queen of nonfiction. And so I wrote a poem about Nazaria Kedra, who was a young activist in Chicago who helped create the Wear Orange campaign for gun violence, or I'm sorry, against gun violence, after her friend. She was the one whose friend was in Obama's inauguration and then went back to Chicago and then was murdered.
Oh, the young girl.
The young girl, and her friend said, you know, again, what can I do about this? I could cry about this or I can start something. And she basically helped to start this whole nationwide campaign to support people and to support, basically just making sure that we could have sensible gun laws so that little kids don't have to worry about things like that. Right. So it was really great to be able to write about her as well. And then, there's the Stacey Abrams book.
Okay.
So this one was really interesting, and I'm just so excited because like it's a hardcover book and it's a paperback, and there's
they released them both together, the hardcover and the paperback at the same time.
The paperback, the audiobook is also out there. I think you can download the MP3 if you want to, but okay. In any case, I was really, really excited to work on that. My agent contacted me and said that HarperCollins was interested in me working on this. And I was just like, wow, that's so awesome, because there's so many things that like I just adore about Stacey Abrams anyway. Right. And I mean, aside from just what she does politically, which is like mind-blowing to me, how she's managed to work all that, like how she does all of that, just like she's kind of a nerd, and I am too. She was a Girl Scout. She really loves spreadsheets. I have one up right behind this screen, just all these things that I feel like I could relate to while reading about her. And then when I actually did the research, I was just so blown away. And one of the things that really, really struck me when I was doing the research on the VIP Stacey Abrams book is that Stacey and I are, we're very close in age, but we're both in our families the first generation of Black people born with the right to vote throughout the country.
Mm.
My parents weren't born with that, and my parents are only about 20 years older than me. And my grandparents sure weren't born with that, and my great-great-grandparents weren't. And then the ones before then who were in this country.
That's the kind of context that people need when they try to understand the right to vote and why we take it so seriously. That's the type of context that people need to hear.
Yeah, 'cause my parents couldn't vote until they were in their 30s. They were in the South, and they couldn't vote till then. They didn't grow up with the right to vote.
I think it makes a difference because my dad, who was born in Panama, that was not an issue for his family.
Okay.
It was a whole different thing. So when he
Right.
came here, my mom's like, oh, this is going on and that's going on. And my dad's like, what? We're Americans. And so it's also been interesting kind of growing up in that kind of a dichotomy where, one side of my family is like, hey, we just kind of do what we want. The other side of the family is like, we have been through all this oppression, because on my mom's side of the family, we can trace the family history back to like the 1700s. So, because my people love to talk and tell stories about each other. So anyway, so it was really interesting to research that. It was really heartbreaking to read about Reconstruction and to really think about what that meant to have the whole world open up to you and then have someone just slam the door shut for political reasons. I mean, political and power reasons, but still. And it was difficult because I was writing all of this during the pandemic, during the last administration, while all these things are going on. And I was feeling so angry. But one thing I know as a teacher, I can't teach angry. And I can't write for children when I'm angry, because my job is to give them hope. And it's not false hope, it's real hope. It's the thing that got us here after all the stuff that we had been through before. Right. And I remember someone saying about some people, like I think they talked about Aretha Franklin's voice has ancestral medicine in it. Like you hear it and you just feel something that comes from far, far away. And I feel like as artists, we all have that. We all have some aspect of that, and we can tap into it when we need to kind of help ourselves, heal ourselves, and to help and heal others as well. But it's hard to get to when I'm just like, So I really had to sit and think about everything that I wrote in that book. And I'm like, I've got a 6-year-old I've got a 6th grader in front of me. And I need to tell her why things are the way they are. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I'm also not going to come at her with all this anger or come at her with all this, all of these emotions that aren't necessarily going to help her figure out what the solution will be for her.
Right.
And it was a really interesting process working with my editors, where I would tell them things and they'd be like, that can't be true. And I'm like, it is true, and it's true because it's logically true. We just never think about it that way. Things like how when women got the right to vote, basically, ultimately, at that moment, white women got the right to vote.
Right, exactly.
And out of everybody who's allowed to vote now, you can also add women. But they didn't say, and those Black people who weren't allowed to vote and those Native Americans who weren't allowed to vote.
Those Black people that's in the back of this parade? No, don't worry about them.
They didn't change any of that. They didn't change any of that. So ipso facto, they did not get the right to vote. And then there were people who were saying to me like, no, that can't be true. I'm like, well, why did we have a chapter about how Stacey's grandmother
no, Black people in the South especially, they couldn't vote to the 60s. I mean, till after a lot of people died. That's, and in the North, they could, I'm assuming.
In some places more than others, though.
Okay.
That was still, and actually, not everybody, but like pretty much everybody except for like landowning white men of this specific religion, let's say, were allowed to vote pretty much throughout the course of, but like not everybody, like the whole idea of the literacy test that they would give people before they could vote, so that they could say, you can't read this, therefore you can't vote. That didn't even start with Black people. That started in Connecticut with Irish people, where they didn't want the Irish to vote, so they gave them a literacy test that they couldn't pass. And then somehow that was adopted down south with the Jim Crow laws. So that's another thing that's really important, because anything that happens to any of us can happen to all of us.
Well,
Mm.
see,
And
you just you hit on so many things, and the question I wanted to ask you is, what do you feel informs your writing? Is it the children that you work with? Is it the history? Is it the your theatric background? But it just seems like it's almost an amalgamation of all of them.
yeah, it's happening on many different levels. And I mean, basically what it comes down to is, I know I have to face a kid either in person or in book form.
Mhm.
And I know how I felt when I was a kid and I was in classes and they didn't tell us the truth about things. And I knew they weren't telling us the truth, but we all kind of had to grin and bear it, because what are you going to do? Go to detention for like saying stuff, which I
Mhm.
did. But you know, so I feel like I really, really do owe kids the respect to let them know, okay, so this is the world, how the world is, and this is how the world was. How would we like the world to be? What can we do to create the world that we all want to live in? And we can face hard truths. We can face joyful truths, because, you know, there's good and bad, but basically we're all just people making choices. So I think that kids being able to understand that kind of gives them a little bit more power in a world that is very disempowering for them, and gives them hope in a world that isn't necessarily giving them the hope that they can, you know, that they could always use. It's weird. Sometimes I feel kind of pushed a little bit, again, by like my ancestors, in the sense that I think about like what my relatives have gone through just for me to be here where I am right now. What can I do to be a part of that, you know,
Continuum.
infinite chain
Mhm.
that goes on and on and on? And how can I strengthen my link for those who come after me? And what tools can I give these children who are going to be out in a world that isn't really, really set up for them? But, you know, I'm on their side, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of books that are on their side, and I want to be a part of that.
Now,
That's a beautiful way to say it.
it is the Stacey Abrams book it just came out. When did it come out?
It came out like
Yesterday or
last
week?
Tuesday,
Last
the
week,
18th.
okay. Because I knew it was new. Now, we only have 2 minutes left. So in the 2 minutes, can you tell us something about Stacey Abrams that's in the book that people may not know? And then tell people how they can connect with you online
Okay.
and so forth.
I think people know a little bit more about this now, but Stacey Abrams is also a romance novelist. She started writing romance novels when she was in graduate school, because she always wanted to write spy novels and, like, you know, espionage novels. And they're like, we don't buy these Black people being spies. We don't get this. So then Stacey took the same story and the same characters and just made them fall in love. And they're like, a romance, and it sold. So
A lot of times that's all it takes.
that's all it takes. So again, I have a book coming out on Paul Revere Williams later on this year. I also have a chapter book series called Abby in Orbit, about a little Afro-Latina girl and her family who live on the International Space Station in 2051. And her adventures with her friends and her family, and it's just a lot of fun. And you can find out more about this at my website at Andrea J as in joy, Loney.com. You can find me on pretty much any social media platform at Andrea J Loney. That's I'm everywhere there.
Well, we did put your website in the chat, so I'm sure that you're going to have some of our viewers who are going to be reaching out to you. Mary Evans already said she needs to have a conversation with you, so you're probably going to be hearing from her pretty soon.
But thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much what you do for what you do with children, your commitment to teaching, and your commitment to releasing stories that have impact, but also let people know their history. You know, it's not just you know, fun is fun, but they're learning about their history while they're having fun. So thank you for that. And thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been so much fun, and I have a new t-shirt now. I'll wear this so many places. I'm gonna get a mug. It's gonna be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a
Have a
great
good
night.
night.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was great. I honestly, I did not know I thought she was in her 20s. When I saw the picture, back
Yes, she looks
her
very
hair, but she, it's very youthful looking. So I thought she was joking when she told me how old she was. So, but black don't crack. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So our next guest is Jeanette Pope. And she is a mystery thriller author with B.K. Royston Publishing. They've had a couple of guests on recently. So Ms. Pope is one of the fiction guests, because I think most of the other guests were nonfiction authors. And so welcome, Ms. Pope, to Black Authors Matter TV. Or nonfiction authors. Oh, you need to turn your device down. You have another device because it's like a 6-second delay, and it creates feedback. So welcome to our show, Black Authors Matter TV. How are you?
I am fine, and you? I think I'm still getting them.
So welcome to.
Yep, you are.
You need to turn the sound down on whatever device. Just turn that down, the sound on whatever device you're on. So because it does, there's a 6-second delay, and plus it creates an echo.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Not now, and let's see.
I'm still.
There's a little microphone on the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
For the
Are you talking
sound.
to us on a phone and on your computer?
Hit it and turn it all the way, pull it all the way down where there's no sound.
Okay, I'm turning it all the way down.
Or slide it backwards. Some of them are up and down, some of them are.
Wait a minute, hold on. I think I'm on Facebook.
That's what it
That's
is.
what it is. That's what it is.
Okay,
You need
now
to close that. You can always go back and watch it later.
I know. Oh, okay, now I can't see you. Now what I do?
You should be able to see us in the Zoom. Are you in the Zoom?
No, I don't. I don't know.
We can see you, so.
I can't see you. Not at all.
Look at the bottom of your laptop.
Mhm.
There should be a Zoom camera. Maybe you need to open that.
Baby. Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, all right.
Okay, can we start again? Hello.
We're good.
How are you?
And I'm getting pretty good at this. I can even give people a few technical instructions. I've learned a lot over the last almost 2 years. So it's great. But welcome to the show, and tell us about your book.
Okay, my book is Desperate Angles. If you can see it.
Yeah, see it very well.
Okay. Yes, it is the second in the series.
Okay.
I wrote the first one, this one.
Okay, that one's called Double Triangles.
Double Triangles.
Okay, all right.
When I finished writing it, everybody insisted that I write a sequel to it. I had no intention of doing that, but everybody, just everybody that read it, I need book two, please write it. So I did, so I wrote it, and I was really thrilled. People went out and bought it. I had a launch, the first launch I did for Double Triangles, it was very formal. I did it at University of Louisville's alumni club.
Okay.
The second one, this one, Desperate Angles, I launched it just laid back at a fish place called Mike Lennon's down on the river. You buy your little fish dinner and buy your book. lunch and a book. And
Okay,
it went over really, really well too. So
okay. So you're a retired teacher.
I am. And you were talking about learning something. When we went virtual, I
Mhm.
was still teaching, and I had to learn how to teach students with all of this new technology.
Oh, so you're recently retired.
Well, I retired 5 years ago, but I went back. I just love to teach. But
Okay.
I don't want the pressure of a classroom though. Just give me the tutoring,
Okay.
and I get my little class and we do what we do, yeah. So I like that. I'm doing it. I'm still doing it now too. I have to teach and I have to write.
Okay.
And how long did you teach the first time before you went back?
30 years.
Wow.
And what levels?
Teaching was my second career. My first, I was in daycare, and I worked my way up to being the director. When it dawned on me, there's no money really. And if business starts to go down, the director's the first person that does not get paid.
Mm.
So I said, well, I need a career change. So I went back to school and finished my degrees to be a special ed teacher and regular ed teacher.
Okay. Yeah. Daycare is not known for being lucrative, but it's
No.
necessary.
It is very, very necessary. And
Right.
I'm so sorry that it's not easy for the money and the pay. It's not easy to get teachers to be, I'm sure to be a lot of teachers, people would go back to get maybe the associate degree that is needed to, if the pay was worth it, if it was worth just a little bit more and maybe a little bit of benefits too, because you have to look out for your future.
So I guess you were one of the people who would say that you have to have a calling to teach. You can't be there just for the paycheck. I mean, it has to be.
That I truly believe that, because it's not like a job. You have got to form a relationship with those children, even the ones that just tick your nerves.
Yes.
I always say a little prayer, and I find something that I like about the child, and it works a whole lot. I mean, because if I listen to them, in my career, I've done a lot with them. I pray with them in the morning, like with their parents' problems. I take them to lunch. I ate lunch with them and listened to their problems.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to who's having a baby, so how's your baby brother, how's granny doing? You have to have those type of relationships with them to be able to reach them and teach them. You cannot correct them. And if you don't invest, you don't get anything out. And even that goes with the parents too. The parents, all you have to do is let them know that little Johnny, little Mary has a potential, just a little bit, like the Bible says, a mustard seed. And that parent would just go all out to make sure that you have and that little Johnny has what he needs to make it. But if you're not willing to make those types of investment, you're not going to get it.
Absolutely. Now, I'm guessing that with the level of grades that you were teaching and your books, it wasn't really the teaching that led you to writing. So what was it that led you to writing?
I have been writing since I was about 11 to 12 years old. It's a passion that I have just got to do. So I would always get me, and when I tell the story, everybody laugh. My to-go-to tools were a blue big pen, had to have those, and a spiral notebook, must have them. And I would just write all day. I'll make up plots and and I just have to write them down. It seems like I have to go home and write, and I would write every day, all day long. Then in the summer, I would read them out to my little friends that live next door. And or either we play teacher, I'll be the teacher, of course. But
We did that.
yeah, but those two passions, they don't link, but the passions are the same. It's the equal. I've got to write, I've got to teach.
So tell us about your double triangle book. What's your basic
Okay,
premise.
Double
that
Triangles
one.
was my first book, and I wrote it because of our people in Louisville, Kentucky. It started to be in the West End, whereas the murders got to be so, and the neighborhoods were so unsafe, and it did not used to be that way. And I wrote this book with flashbacks to where it used to be, where people could sit on the porch and talk to porch to porch. Kids could play outside. Kids could go to the park. Of course, it was a murder in my book, but other than that, the neighborhood, I wanted that. And I wanted to really talk about the church involvement. Like when I was growing up, the church was a big part of our lives. It was the social, where you learn your social skills, basically. You had your Sunday school, you had your church etiquette, and everything. Now we don't have that too much. Sunday
Right.
school's just dropped off. And I wrote the book so my audiences could see, and remember how it used to be, and perhaps people would want to put that investment back into their families, into the church, and into their friends. But when I wrote Double Triangles, and it's just, Double Triangles was just so, just people drove around the city to try to find the places that I wrote about.
Oh, okay.
That's fun.
They would tell me, I was just saying, no, you didn't, because I made that up. So I wrote about that, and I wrote about, my big thing is, and when I was going to church, I still do go to church, but when it's little, they teach you all about all the goodness and stuff, but nobody teaches you about forgiveness. They say you have to forgive. Well, how you gonna do that?
Right.
Somebody just probably just like in this Double Triangle, just tore your heart right out of your body. And they're talking about forgive. Who's gonna do that?
Right.
They don't teach you how to do it. So in both books, the theme is about some forgiveness. Some things you can forgive like right away. Some things gonna take time. And you have to really grow. And so we wrote about that. Now, it's not fluff because the plots is a lot of twists and turns. You never know who the murderer is until the end.
Right.
Never know. And
I like that. I like when you can keep the I actually spoke with a client last night about that. When you can drop just enough hints, so when you drop that bomb at the end, it all makes sense. That's the fun part about a plot twist.
I got this. Well, both books are it's jaw dropping. I mean, when you really get to the end of Double Triangles, you're shocking. What happens in Desperate? Nobody, like it says right here, can these characters, can their love be strong enough to save their baby? Now, what a good hook that is.
Yes.
Yes, you save the baby. What nut would go after the baby? Well, okay. Read this book and you will find out.
Now, what are the legs with the stilettos? What does that represent?
Okay, anybody these red shoes are in Double Triangles.
Oh,
So
okay.
read it, when you read it, immediately when you pick this up, if you haven't read it, I'm so glad that it can stand alone. But if you read Double Triangles, you automatically know what these shoes mean.
Okay.
And they are threaded throughout both books.
Okay, and I'm assuming that the skyline is the skyline for Louisville.
And it is in both books. But
Okay.
Double Triangles right here, you can see the skyline right here.
Yes.
That's cool. And this is the Ohio River right there.
Yeah, I went to Louisville once.
Oh, cool.
I went to a conference.
I actually lived right outside of Louisville for about almost 3 years, actually. I was stationed at Fort Knox.
That's exactly where I live. Now I don't live in Fort Knox, but I'm in the area.
Yeah, Radcliffe.
Yeah, not that far out. I'm in Valley Station.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's where I live in. But I grew up in the West End though. And so, like I said, it's a lot about the church, and you will meet the ladies' auxiliary. Everybody's church has one, who takes over. And
yes,
but it's meaningful. I have Bible verses in it. Well, my characters, like myself, I am religious based. And because I can't make it without, if I run into a problem or something, I fall back on the Bible to lead me, to think about. And rather than, now you go to your friends, you may get two different ways. Girl, go on and knock him off. No. Or girl, I would do so and so. But I think if I, can just pull on the faith and the teachings I've learned from Bible school and Sunday school and as an adult church. So most of it is in here with these characters are based on religion. And one of my characters are characters that are professionals, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're police officers. And then we have some street people, with the street language and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what makes it real.
And it is real, yeah, because you have different people and you don't judge. You don't judge them. You may not want to be like them, but you don't judge them or look down on them because of the way that they are. I've learned a lot.
Okay, so you are working on the third book called Broken Triangles.
Which is, once again, they beg.
Okay.
So I told my husband, I am going to wrap this series up in the third book.
Well, some book series keep going based on demand. The readers demand to know, as if these characters are real people.
Really?
What happened to them? Where they go. And so they do. Your readers will tell you, and then it's incumbent on you to do the writing and create a story that hopefully is as compelling as the first.
Well, really and truly, when I first started writing, there are 4 books that's been running around in my head for a long time. Double Triangles was one of them. I have 3 more that I would like to get out if I ever get out of this series. That is totally different.
I sense that your titles have to do with shapes.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. You took the words out.
Okay, Double Triangles. Really, I got it because if you can see, let me see if I can see. If you can see the knife this lady's holding, it's got a triangle on the end of double triangles on the end of it.
Okay.
In this book,
on the knife itself.
On the knife.
Oh, okay.
In this book, the lives of these people are in a triangle that you can see, and a triangle that you will recognize at the end.
Okay. So is it a love triangle?
Yes.
Okay.
And a nasty one too.
Okay.
You must read it.
Okay, so how far are you into the third book?
I'm halfway finished with the third book.
Okay.
I would never intended to write it, but I write with another group, and they have a thing called where they critique your book, critique your writing. So I didn't have anything, so I started sending in parts of Broken Triangles, and just to see. So that helped me get to about the halfway part of it. So it seems like now, after I release Desperate Angles, that I'm going to have to finish that one.
So is this an online group or a face-to-face group?
Oh, it's the online. Well, it's both. I met them at Barnes and Nobles, and I was looking for some books.
Those used to be the best places for those writing groups. Was Barnes and Noble, and Borders was another one back in the day.
And I was there, and the lady that was helping me, she said, "You must be a writer." And I said, "I am." And she said, "Well, you should come and join our group." And then I did. So we were meeting at Barnes and Noble's the second Saturday, but then pandemic hit. And so then we went to Zoom. So right now we're still in the Zoom, and until May, we're trying to see if this disease will die down some.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's the biggest thing is about being safe.
Yeah, that's we're all hoping. I think Omicron is well, they said the numbers are coming down, but then they started talking about some other variant. I don't want to hear about it.
don't need
I'm
to.
not, I'm double vaxxed and I take my supplements. I take C, D, zinc, and elderberry every day, and to fortify my immune system. And that's all any of us can do, but I'm not gonna be afraid to go out and things like that.
Well, that's what I
Try
have
to stay
be.
safe. I haven't been, well, I do go to church, and church is we still have social distancing, but, and we wear masks, but, I go out. I have to get out. I can't.
Well, I go to work now. We just came off of a alternative, education, but we was doing them online.
For a while.
Our first day back was today. So I've got where I'm wiping, spraying, spraying the kids, spraying me, keep my mask on, make sure they keep theirs on. So knock on wood, so far so good. But like I said, I do love to write, and Desperate Angles takes place in Louisville, and everything I try to keep around the river, and the scenes like around the river. It was my friend. This is a side thing with double triangles. I had some teacher friends, and they said, well, I don't have time to read. I don't have time to read. So I assigned them a chapter, each one a chapter. Then we was going to meet, because one of my friends had a house that her backyard ran into the Ohio River. Her yard was her yard in the Ohio River.
Oh.
So we met there, and we called it Murder on the River. And so what happened, so everybody would go right in order and tell and summarize their chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to the end, everybody was all surprised. Number one, I sold more books that way. And number two, they did read the book. But then when they read the chapter, and after chapter one, you read chapter two, you're going to read the rest of the book. So they read the rest of the book. We called it Murder on the River. My husband barbecued, and it was really nice. But the lady's house we were, she passed away.
Oh.
I mean, it floored me. I mean, this just happened. It was like the pandemic just wiped her out. And I was just so sad. But that day was a perfect day. The weather was good. It was warm, and you could see the river as we were out there on her deck, talking about the book.
Right.
But both books, I think, everybody just tells me that they love them, and I like to write. But I was I've been listening to you all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was listening to that lady, and that's one thing I'm guilty of, is after I have my lunches and all my friends buy my books, I'm kind of done. But so I'm gonna have to get out there and really get seen and everything.
That was Barbara Beckley. She was the first guest.
Yeah, I was listening to everything you all said. And Miss Rhonda, I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. I do want to let you know that Curtis Kojo Morrow, he joins us every week. He wanted to know if you've done any traveling, but I think the answer to that is probably not, because of the pandemic.
Not lately. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. And I did want to say this, the other thing that I have done too. One of my first accomplishments, when I was going to Jefferson Community College at that time. And I was in a writing class, and they asked me to submit a play. And I just submitted it. I wasn't even thinking, but I won that contest, and it was produced where, live, where people were coming to see it for 3 nights. And that was my claim to fame there. I never felt like that before. I mean, I was on site, so the actors had questions and stuff about how things would do. I mean, it was an experience I would never forget.
That sounds amazing.
It was.
So tell people how they can reach you online and how they can get a copy of the book.
Okay. My books are on Amazon.com. Okay. And if you want to know more about me, I have a website. It's JeannettePope.com. And I am also on Facebook, and that is author Jeanette C. Pope. So you can go and drop me a line, and leave me messages about what you think about my books. And you all don't forget to read my books.
Well, I did place your Amazon link as well as your website in the chat, on Facebook, so people can find you.
Okay.
And
Now,
also, do you have a ETA for when your book 3 is going to be coming out?
yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
Oh, well, let me see. Oh, well, it'll probably be,
Will it be this year, do you think?
yeah, it'll probably be but at the end of summer. I would say in August
Okay.
of this year. Yeah.
Okay, so book 1 came out in 2017.
Yes, it did.
Book
Yes.
2 came out in
21.
2021, this year?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right. So okay. That's
I
good.
wasn't
Well,
intending to write it either, but I was still writing, and I was writing. I'm trying to get it right, and first I was going to do it myself, and that did not work out at all. I ended up calling Julie on the telephone. Please, please help me. I have no idea what I'm doing. So
okay. Well, she's helped. Julia has helped dozens of authors. I don't know exactly how many. She told me one time, but I forgot. And it keeps growing. So she's helped dozens of authors realize their
She's really good. She kept. And how I met her was funny. When I got finished writing Double Triangles, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I didn't know what to do. And then I wrote the church because I know that Dr. Cosby, Reverend Cosby, had books published. And he sent my letter to Julia. And that's how I met her. And she,
that's wonderful.
Was.
It's good when people will mention your name in rooms that you are not in.
Isn't that good? Yes.
In a positive way.
Yes.
It could be talking about you in the room, and it's not positive. So, it's good when it's positive. So thank you so much, Jeanette, for being a guest.
And thank you all for having me, and keep my books in mind.
Continue success with your work.
I will, and you too, because you are doing a good thing from what I heard tonight. All righty. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
We can't see her name. Okay, yeah, her name isn't showing, Curtis. So, Rhonda, you already saw.
Right.
You already on it. I should have known. I'm always behind on, because by the time I check, you've already answered the question most of the time. So, okay. So I did want to give you a little time just to give people an update about your scholarship effort and your date when the scholarships will be awarded. And when do you, would you tell us the authors' names and maybe, the children's names, and maybe we can just introduce them on the show when they get awarded. What do you think?
That would be wonderful, actually. I would love to be able to tell the, have the kids maybe, if we have time to maybe have them read their essays, or if we at least just announce their names on the show. I think that would be wonderful, and it'd be great for them. But I will say this, they are getting a great bevy of prizes. So for those who are wondering, it's the 8th and 9th grade essay contest. We were supposed to have the Black History Month Literary Weekend, but we canceled the events due to COVID because the numbers had gone back up again, and I just really wasn't comfortable with taking our authors into those environments. So I went ahead and canceled the event, but we kept the scholarship going and the essay contest. So the deadline for the essay contest is February 4th. So we still have time. There's maybe a little over
next
a week.
week.
Yeah. So
Next Friday.
Next Friday. Okay. Wonderful. So I am putting the I know it's a long link, but I didn't have time to shorten it right now. But I did put the link to the application in the chat for those of you who have an 8th or 9th grader who would like to take part. Prizes are going to be one 8th grader and one 9th grader will receive a $200 cash prize. They will have their essay published in Swagger magazine. They will get a brand new copy of this awesome book right here, 101 Scholarship Applications. Thank you very much, Ms. Gwen Richardson, for that. And then every author, or excuse me, every student who participates, whether you win or lose, you will also get my Right to Win Writer's Guide, because I want you to be able to use this to write your papers, write your essays. Maybe you want to write your own book one day. I want everybody to be able to do that, because that's what this is all about, encouraging our younger generation to continue to write and express themselves with the written word. So everybody who participates will get that workbook, but those who win are the ones who are going to get the prizes. We also have a special prize coming from Higher Minds of Education, which is located in Louisiana. They will be also offering some scholarship preparation materials. So this is a very lucrative contest for our young people. Now, for our graduating seniors, we haven't forgotten about you. Once we announce the winners of the 8th and 9th grade essay contest, we will be announcing the launch of the graduating senior scholarship for 2021. Last year, we gave 2 $500 scholarships to students in Louisiana. This year, we plan to double that, and we're going to be able to give a graduating senior at least $1,000. So we want you to be a part of this. So make sure that you stay tuned to the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook page, Instagram, and the website for more information on those scholarships, because every little bit counts. I don't care if it's $250, every little bit counts, because a $250 scholarship will pay for a book, maybe 2 books, but probably 1 book, as high as these things are getting these days.
Yeah, or supplies, or
Yes,
there's a lot
absolutely.
of things that people need. So our final guest is Chase Bolling, and we're going to bring him on. And
Awesome.
he is the managing editor for the new imprint with Wahida Clark Publishing. And the new imprint is SF for the Culture, which SF stands for science fiction, I believe, but Chase will tell me if I'm wrong or right. And is also the imprint that deals with science fiction and fantasy. So Wahida Clark, she ventured into a new arena with her books, expanding from urban fiction to other arenas. And I'm going to go off camera for like 2 seconds, because I wanted to bring something back.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show. I remember you from when we did the National Black Book Festival a few months ago, and we really enjoyed talking with you and the other science fiction authors, and it's really good to see more African Americans in this space.
Yes, thank you so much. I had such a great time last time we were on. Thank you so much for having me back. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and I wanted to go off camera so I could show you that I actually have your book here. The Road of Resistance.
Thank you so much for supporting.
My own copy. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it's in my to be read stack.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the venue.
And science fiction fantasy is not one of my genres that I read, but I'm willing to venture out and expand and read something new, because you never know, you might read something that you really like. So first of all tell us about the imprint SF for the Culture, and what you all hope to achieve, and your role as managing editor, and how many authors you have. Just give us a lay of the land on that.
Okay, so at the height of the pandemic, in 2019, I met Wahida online, because everything in life is online at that point in time. And we had a conversation about my books and about the role of science fiction and fantasy and the impact it has on our society, and what it means for us as people of color to have representation, right, in science fiction and fantasy. And so that's how we came up with the name Science Fiction Fantasy for the Culture, because really it's those things, that we see in our media, right, whether it's books or TV, that really inspire us to impact the world around us. A lot of things we use every day, as far as technology goes, are stuff that came straight out of science fiction books. You
Right.
know, whether you're talking about electric cars, whether you're talking about space travel or sustainable energy, all of this stuff at one point was science fiction or it was a fantasy until somebody decided to make it real. And so it's our mission at SFF for the culture to bring those authors forward, you know, in this science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction realm, and bring these voices to the forefront and give them an opportunity to be heard and thereby drive our culture forward, and impact our future, and make a better world for our children, and in a world where, pretty much it won't be so surprising to see Black author science fiction and fantasy, because we'll know that it's not just something that's culturally relevant in one space.
Absolutely. I like what you said, that a lot of what we're seeing now actually came from science fiction. I remember when we were kids, we used to see the Jetsons and think that's never going to happen. And then a lot of the things that we saw in the Jetsons, we're actually seeing now.
Exactly.
So it's not too far from the imagination to write science fiction. And as long as you can actually kind of apply it to life and make it feel real, it's still a story. Whether it's science fiction or not, it's still a great story.
That's something I had to stumble upon, because it wasn't always like, my mother was very much so all about Black authors in my house growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't very much science fiction or fantasy in the house unless you wanted to count like maybe some Tom Clancy or something along those lines, right? And so I could remember growing up, her pushing me away from stuff like The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, or,
because it wasn't Black authors.
yeah. And then there wasn't very much representation. Like, she didn't want me growing up envisioning a future that didn't have me in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that parent myself is something I could definitely understand and respect. And it's one of the things that pushed me to seek out authors of color in science fiction and fantasy as a reader. And it's what pushed me to become a writer myself, right? Because I just wanted to write books where if my son or somebody like my son or somebody like a young Chase, because I hung out in the library a lot because I was in trouble. So I'd always ask, like, yo, can I go to the library rather than sit in the because at least there were books to read.
But now, if your mother kind of steered you away from science fiction, what was it that drew you back in?
I would say AP English in 10th grade, we read The Alchemist. And then around that time, Lord of the Rings had just been released in theaters. And so it was kind of like inevitable. And then before that, my aunt, God rest her dead, she brought me Harry Potter, and my mother was not pleased. So I used to hide out and read Harry Potter on the low, you know what I'm saying? And it's not like you could be walking around my neighborhood with a Harry Potter book. Like, that just was not the thing. So it was like really something, it was like a guilty pleasure, something I had to sneak and low-key do. And as I got older, I think she just kind of gave up. And then I remember when we saw Independence Day, right, with Will Smith, I think that was sort of the start of the breaking of the ice. She was like, all right. Like, because she really liked that movie. She may not cop to it, but she really liked that movie. And so it was one of those things where I think as she started to relax, I started to get a renewed interest in the genre. And then it was one of those things where historical fiction had always appealed to me. Like, my first favorite books were like Charlie Skedaddle and Roll Thunder, Hear My Cry, and stuff like that. I always wanted something that would remove me from my current time and place, because that's what made it entertainment for me. And so fantasy books, like I said, I think she just gave up by like 10th grade, she had quit. Long as I read like some nonfiction here or there, so she catch me reading like the autobiography of Benjamin O. Davis Jr. or Bury My Heart by Wounded Knee, and then she would leave me alone. You know what I'm saying?
Was your mom a teacher?
No, my mother was actually the first Black female police detective in the city of Bridgeport. And that's what she did for a long time. And then I was born, and that was kind of the end of that. She retired. And then my mother was a community organizer She worked with several politicians here in the city of Bridgeport. She ran a campaign for Senator Alvin Penn for many years. She was his campaign manager, and now she works for the Census Bureau.
Oh, okay. You know, it's alluding back to what you mentioned. And I'm not sure when I thought about this. I can't remember what time period made me realize this about films. But the movies about the future never had Black people in them for a long time. Like we didn't exist in the future. It's like we're just the future. We just somewhere along the way we got eliminated, and the future was we weren't in it at all. It was just all white people, or it would be white people and some creatures, you know, aliens, Martians, but we weren't in
everything but Black people.
And Star Trek did have the, you know,
Yes.
Uhuru, but I wasn't a Trekkie. I never watched it. So, but that was one of the few that even had
Star Trek
anybody.
had one or two Black people in it.
Which one?
Star Trek. Star Wars just had Billy D. Williams.
Okay. And he was probably there for eye candy. But I mean, even when he got older, he was still eye candy. So anyway, but yeah, it's like the future. If we weren't there, you know.
Yeah, it highlights the mission and the movement and what we're doing in a serious way. Because it's like I grew up, my siblings are older than me, you know what I'm saying? Like I was my mom's change of life kid, right? So Star Wars and all of that and Star Trek, like, you know, that was their stuff, that was their jam. Right. Okay. And so it was like I grew up acculturated to these things. And my brother, like, he would watch Star Wars, but he wasn't a huge fan because he would always say that Star Trek had more Black representation. Because by the time the 90s rolled around, you know what I'm saying, we had I'm drawing a blank here. My brother from Reading Rainbow.
LeVar
right? Star Trek.
Oh,
yes,
LeVar Burton, the Next Generation, or whatever.
Star Trek, the Next Generation, and even now, right? I'm pretty sure that the latest iteration of Star Trek has a Black woman as the captain of the Enterprise, and so it was like my brother's argument stood for a long time. So he used to kind of force me to watch Star Trek. It was never my thing, but needless to say, all these years later, I think it panned out because I am working on a title. It's really in its early stages that is set in space, so that we can maybe stop having that problem about a lack of representation in those futuristic type of spaces. Because even The Expanse, which is a great show, you know what I'm saying, you don't necessarily see as much diversity as you would think. Because I was like, man, I'm surprised most of the Belters aren't Black. Like, how did this happen? Like, you know, we work on Earth, space, and work. Say that one more time.
I'm not familiar with that show.
The Expanse is a pretty good show. It's based off of a book series. And I try to watch everything based off a book, because one day I hope my books become a show and I want people to watch my stuff. So I try to support it. Right. And I started watching it because my best friend like totally stands the show. And pretty much I haven't gotten that far into it, but it's a conflict that stems from, you have Earth, you have Mars, right? And then you have these people that live on these colonies in the asteroid belt. And they're pretty much the key cog in the whole Earth-Mars belt machine, you know what I'm saying? And so they kind of live in space. Their bodies undergo these drastic changes from not living on Earth's gravity anymore because humanity adapts. And so like they have to deal with a lot of suffering and what they're dealing with. And it's like, you know, it's strikingly familiar. And so when I watched the show after knowing a bit of the premise, I was, like I said, I was very surprised not to see more faces that look like mine. And because I just feel like it's just not even realistic.
What platform is it on? What network or what is it on?
I had started watching The Expanse on Amazon Prime.
Oh, so it's a Prime show. So I don't have Amazon Prime.
So I will say that you had that you are starting to create representation, not just in your writings for people of color, but now you are also helping to make a space for writers of color with Wahida Clark. So can you talk a bit about how that came about? Because I know you said that you contacted her about being a science fiction author, which is totally different from what she's known for writing. So how were you able to convince her, hey, you need to have this science fiction author as part of your team? And then how were you able to bring in other people?
Okay, so it all started when she was in development for her very first fantasy title called Emperors and Assassins. And so I was approached by a staff member to be a beta reader for the title. So I read it and I got my notes back and we got to talking. And then right around that time, the godfather of Sword and Soul, Charles Saunders, passed away. And I had done a post in honor of Charles Saunders because he was like a huge uh I guess part of my journey as an author and as a reader, and finding, melanated fantasy and fantasy with black characters that are more than just tokens or, in passing. So I posted about it and, she asked me on Instagram, said, who is Charles Saunders? And I said, oh, let me tell you, about, the godfather of Sword and Soul. And so we got to talking and she was astounded that, he had been writing for such a long time and she had never heard of him.
Okay.
Right. And so that's when it was kind of like during that conversation, the seeds for the SFF for the culture implant were planted because she was getting into fantasy, going stir crazy during the pandemic, trying to do something different, keep herself entertained. Right. And I had just, pretty much got knee deep into my self-published author journey with the first version of the Road of Resistance. And it was kind of like, we had this conversation and she was like kind of stunned that, there are a lot of Black authors writing science fiction and fantasy, but there is not a lot of attention brought to these authors. And the fact that in the world of publishing, there is like this stigma that comes with Black books and Black authors that they have less value, that they're less profitable. And this translates to readers, right? Because even so, you'll come across a cover, there'll be faces like ours on the cover. You'll be like, man, I don't know if this is for me. Right? Because there's certain biases that have been implanted culturally that just, that cause these things to happen. And so we really just wanted to be a sort of a siege engine against these gatekeepers that say, hey, Black books aren't that valuable, or we love authors of color, but we only have X amount of space for them, at our publishing house. Like, nah, that's not a problem at SFF for the culture. That's why we're here. That's what we do. And so when I reached out, we went on a search, things were very early. We're still building to this day. And I reached out to a couple authors and I made a couple posts and I got actually an overwhelming response. Like it was to the point where I had to close submissions because our inboxes were so inundated. And what we came out with were Zed Amadeo, who happens to be the granddaughter of rock and roll legend Jimi Hendrix, right? And so her title is called Resurrection. It's in stores now. It's a really great book. I had a great time working with her. We ended up with Deborah Bird, who decided that she would prefer to be an indie author and do her own thing. So she is no longer with us, but we're wishing her the best of luck. And then we got a brother named Kevin Macklin, who, in my opinion, like I'm a Kevin Macklin fan. And his title, Prince of Ruins, is coming out on February 8th. It's the day after my birthday. It's the only time I ever wish my birthday fell on a Tuesday. Nobody wants their birthday on a Monday anyway, but I wanted his book to come out on my birthday because that would have just been fun for me, because I think Prince of Ruins is just a dope title. And what I did was I picked things that who I know as a discriminating and picky reader, was like, nah, I really want to read this.
Right.
Right. Like I read the first 30 pages and I was like, all right, now I need to email you back because I want to see the rest of this book because I want to read it. And I picked each of the first authors that we signed in each of these books because I loved what they were saying about the world around us, right? And the kind of mirror into Blackness and the Black imagination that each title offered, right? And they're all very, very, very different books. So Fractured Princess is a high fantasy, it's chock full of Black girl magic. And Johnny is this princess whose people's story mirrors ours. They once were the dominant pretty much kingdom in their world, and thanks to this metal army they fell off. And so Deb's book brings us into this world where she's the princess of this fallen nation who discovers her true power and the truth about what happened. And I thought that was so poignant that it needed to be brought to light. And then in Resurrection, what stood out to me is it gave me those magical academy vibes, right? But coming from a Black imagination for an older audience than what we would consider for a Harry Potter or something like that. And I just thought that was so dope. And it was so alluring to me to find out what the imagination of a rock and roll legend's grandchild is going to come up with. And so I was just very pleased and very excited to read the book. If you haven't, I suggest you check it out. And then Prince of Ruins, I fell in love with because I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. Right, I try not to be a Walking Dead fan.
I love The Walking Dead, but only seasons 1 through 6. Walking Dead was only good for 6 seasons. After that, it got weird.
See, I thought I said the same thing, and I stopped watching it for a while after Glenn died. Like, I was traumatized.
Well, I just thought it wasn't good.
I didn't even watch the show, and I was traumatized because I was like, "What in the world are y'all talking about?"
Season 1 of Walking Dead is like classic TV. Like
it has to go down.
Season 1. I watched it just that season by itself. That is some of the best television.
Yes, I agree. And so what Kevin gave us when he brings us Prince of Ruins is he creates his own magic system, which is something I always love to see from Black imaginations. Okay. Right? And his world is kind of set up in what has become of the planet after the zombie apocalypse. And it starts off with a prisoner who has no clue what his lineage is, right? And he's offered this job from jail, and what unfolds is just mind-blowing the entire way through. Like, I don't even want to say anything about it because I'll be got on this show and spoiled the whole book. Like, so
that was the one that's called Resurrection.
Resurrection is written by Zed Amadeo, and Prince of Ruins is written by Kevin Mackey.
Okay, the Prince of Ruins.
And that's on pre-order now on Amazon if anybody wants to check it out.
Okay, well, this one, I wanted to show you I have the Fractured. I bought them both at the same time.
Awesome.
The Fractured Princess. I haven't read either one. It's on my list. I probably will read this one first because it's thinner. And I'm not really a science fiction reader. So sometimes if it's not in your genre, then if you read something relatively short, it kind of
maybe steps you in.
Grease the wheels.
Yeah.
Well, I did put the link to SF for the Culture in the chat. So hopefully people will support. And I think they will, because this is a great time for Black science fiction. We have a number of TV shows. Jordan Peele has really put Black science fiction on the map.
Yes.
So it's just kind of a natural progression that we're going to, once we're seeing this on the screen, we're going to want to read more science fiction. And it's in so many different ways. Like I said, a great story is a great story, whether it's set in the future, whether it's fantasy, or whether it's something that's happening right now. It's all about imagination. And I like the fact that you guys are showing that writers of color are not a monolith. We're not all writing the same thing.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Because that's one thing that happens with the major publishers. It's like something becomes popular among Black people. Like some writing, like when urban fiction took off, it's like everything has to be urban for a while. Then they'll go to something else and it has to be this. They've been doing a lot of historical stuff. I don't know, not all of it's good. And but it's like they have us in about 3 lanes, and that they can't, their brains can't expand enough to see us doing everything. And that's,
I think it's kind of like music, right? And you remember for a time, there's rappers that are out now, right, that would not have made it when I was in high school or middle school, right? If you wasn't, I was the generation of DMX, right? So it's like the same thing that happens with music. If you ain't impregnating or killing nobody, don't nobody want to put you on because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Right. Right.
And so I think that's so important as to why literature has to stand, because you could pick up a book written 300 years ago and it's still entertaining. It'll stand the test of time better than a movie or a TV show might, right?
Yes.
So I feel like, especially in the realm of literature, it's very important for us to kind of write our own narratives, right? Because a lot of things, I tell people all the time now, like there's a lot of struggle porn out there, right? And it's very provocative and sexy to white America.
I'm with you.
It's true, though. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
There's all of
I
this
just never heard it
violence
put like that.
Perpetrated towards bodies and people of color, right? That, and it makes good TV and it sells and all of this. Everybody loves it, right? But it's exhausting for us. And so I tell people all the time, it's like, if you want a break from this, you might want to check out what we have going on, right? Because the common thread is visions of Black victory. Like that was the attitude and the mindset I went in towards picking the titles that I wanted to start with, and the attitude that I kind of wanted us to carry as like an internal mission statement. Like, let's give us some visions of Black victory. We got 1,000 visions of the past, of us in slavery, of us during Jim Crow. We don't have those 1,000 depictions of us as captains of starships or leaders of successful revolutions and futuristic settings, where you didn't come off of no plantation. Right. Like
I think that's why Black Panther was so successful, because it showed something, it showed victory, and everybody didn't die. It's like it wasn't a sad story, or it wasn't just sadness. Now, what's the name of the other book? Okay, I got Resurrection. The other one is called, I forgot to write it down, so I want to make sure I have the title.
That's Prince of Ruins by Kevin Macklin.
Prince of Ruins. Okay. Now, I wanted to give you some of the feedback that we're getting on online. Somebody mentioned The Brother from Another Planet, the movie. Have you ever seen that?
No, that is on my to-watch list. It's
a classic.
It's a classic.
Yeah, I put a program on movies and series TV for the last 2 months because I've been writing. So I kind of like to stay in the influence-free zone. So like I ain't even got my Netflix subscription right now. I had to let it slide, like all of that. I've been working, but that is on my to-watch list. And my mother, I seen her the other day, and she was like, listen, you got to read The Spook That Sat by the Door. I don't care how busy you are. She was like, I think you're going to see some things that you recognize.
Yeah, that was
right. And so I got to go pick it up. We got a copy in the house, but that copy is one of the original copies that went into circulation. So it ain't leaving Platt Street.
Right. Don't let everybody mess with that.
Yeah.
Nah, that ain't leaving Platt Street. So I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna get me a copy, and I'm gonna read that when I finish working on this new project. But
now somebody else agreed with me that The Walking Dead got weird after 3 seasons, but I liked it through season 6. To me,
I'm still excited about it today because
7 was horrible. 7, and then I think I tried to start watching 8. It just wasn't compelling anymore. Now, unless I don't know what they did after that, because I haven't even tried. But
I feel like it got to be a bit of a slog, not because it was boring, but because it was emotionally just a lot. Like the characters was sad, I was sad, and so it was almost emotionally a lot of work to watch. And then now it's like I'm waiting and trying not to rush through doing what I'm doing so I could finish up season 11 and try to catch up on Fear of the Walking Dead, because to be honest, I think that they did a good job stopping the zombies from being the main problem. Because zombies are easy to deal with. It's living people that you got a problem with, right?
yeah,
And
that is true. And that is the thing about The Walking Dead, that a lot of people who haven't watched it, they think it's just about zombies. No, it's about how the living people survive
interact
in
with
the
each
midst
other.
of it, and how
Yeah,
they
like
created communities and had to fight off other living people, not the zombies, but that's really what it's
yeah,
about.
it's about human conflict
Yeah,
more than it is about being zombie
right.
horror. And
It
I
is.
like that goes to Rhonda's point, right, about fantasy and fiction. Is really what it tells is the fantastical or the futuristic hook really is what allows you to suspend your prejudices and your predilections enough so that you can see what the human story is being told, right? If somebody tells you a story about Sally and Harry doing something normal and regular, right? You're gonna like, whatever. Now, if they tell you it was a wizard, right, and a foreign queen that he kidnapped, you like, no, really? Right? Because it adds a layer and allows you to suspend that level of belief to really see what the author is trying to portray. Like a lot of my favorite books, right, is not the more fantastical aspects, right, that make them my favorite books. Like I'm a huge fan of the Malazan series. A lot of people might not know what that is, but if you're a Steven Erikson fan, you can holler if you hear me, right? But that is the human stories that it told that really had me crying real tears or stressed out about imaginary people. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the magic, it wasn't the sword play, it was the human stories. And I think that that's the hump a lot of us get to, and especially a lot of us as people of color. Like my family from Mississippi, right? Like, and so my mother, my grandmother, they were all very no nonsense people.
Yeah,
Everything had to be
yeah,
practical. Everything has to serve a purpose. You
yeah,
ain't wasting nothing, right? You
yeah.
out here earning meals and rest. And so
Mhm.
it's like, it seems whimsical, right? Like you can't learn nothing. Like it doesn't provide you any growth, right? To indulge in science fiction or fantasy when really it's quite the opposite. Because, like I said, you've never read a autobiography and been inspired to invent something. And if you have, I tip my hat to you, right? But it's usually when somebody presents you with something that isn't technically possible, but makes you say, hey, what if? And
Right.
that what if turns into, well, let me try.
Yeah.
And that, well, let me try turns into, well, look what I did. And so I really think that that's what makes it so vital, right, to us, not only as people that love books, but to our culture in general, right? I think about some of the earliest literature we have as Black people in the Americas. Think about Huts of the Americas by Martin R. Delaney, right? This is written in the 1800s, right? I'm pretty sure slavery had just ended, or there might have still been enslaved people, right? And it was a story of a slave revolt in the United States and the societies that rose after this, right? And so the very first stories we were telling ourselves or telling each other on these shores, right, with science fiction and fantasy.
Well,
Well,
man,
Stacey,
you can talk to you forever, but
yeah, very
unfortunately, we
interesting.
are 5 minutes over
Over,
time
and
now.
we generally don't go over, but I did. The people who, if you can go into the chat, the comments online, because there are some questions that people asked and
Perfect.
that you can answer for them, because I can't answer them,
Certainly,
and
I'll
we're
do it.
already past our time.
Yes.
But,
Thank-
tell
But
people how
thank
they
you for
can get the
what you do.
books. Tell people how they can get the books.
Okay. You can get our books at www.sffortheculture.com or
Okay.
at chasebollingauthor.com. You can purchase all of our SFF for the culture titles through the links there. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And if anybody ever has any questions or wants to reach out, I'm usually on Instagram at actually Chase Bolling Author. And thank you so much for having me. I really had a blast tonight.
Well, thank you for being here. We really, really enjoyed you. It was a great conversation. We did put the link to SF for the Culture in the chat, as I said a little earlier. So we ask you guys to go out there, support these books. This is all, if you say you're tired of the same old thing, this is not the same old thing. So let's get out, support these authors, support these books, and let's put African-American science fiction on the map, because we're doing this thing.
Yeah, and we can't have more stuff if people don't support it.
I don't write it, but I'll read it.
Yeah, I'm open. So I'm, I used to be closed, but I'm open now. So, so I am going to read some, and I will email you once I finish to let you know what I thought.
Fantastic. I can't wait to get your thoughts.
Okay, well, have a great evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So we're over our time, which we rarely do, but that was a very interesting conversation. Some of you had questions. I do want to let people know next week is Throwback Week, so we're going to be having authors you haven't heard from in a while. They're going to be on. We have Margaret Johnson Hodge, Mark Lacey, Vincent Alexandria, and Evelyn Palfrey. And we have, we're totally booked up for the month of February. So for Black History Month, every slot is filled for the entire month and into March. And the first week in March is when we'll have our 300th guest. I won't say which one it is, but that's when we'll have our 300th guest on this show. 300 different guests, because if they've been on twice, we didn't count them a second time. So that's a lot of people to interview.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we're signing off. I'm Gwen Richardson saying good night and thank you for watching.
Thank you, and I'm gonna enjoy my snickerdoodle now.
Okay, and we'll see you next week. I'm gonna go online and find out and get me some of those cookies. Good night, everybody.
Good night, bye everybody.